Your loved one has Alzheimer's disease. Now what? If he's not safe living at home alone and doesn't need a nursing home, oftentimes assisted living is the place to go. In fact, millions of people around the world are utilizing assisted living services. But what to look for? What should you be asking when you're visiting? We're going to get behind all those details, give you something tangible, and that is today's takeaway. Hello from Laurelwood at the Pine Hills, an assisted living and memory care community here in Plymouth, Massachusetts. We thank them for letting us stay here. You might see some people or hear some noises around. This is an active, vibrant community, and we're grateful that they're letting us shoot the takeaway today. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take an hour, and we're really going to talk through Alzheimer's disease with the intent being to give you some very tangible measurable ways to understand what it's like to pursue assisted living, if that in fact is what you need. For example, some people with memory loss do not need or are not safe living at home alone, or they do not need a nursing home. And assisted living kind of fits in that middle area. There are about 5 million people nationwide with Alzheimer's disease. And when you look at those who are getting younger and younger, people in their 70s, 60s, even 50s with Alzheimer's disease or related dementias, it's staggering. So I am frequently asked, Greg, what do you do? Here is here is a setting where it's not safe for my dad to be there. What is assisted living? My 23 years in the senior living business kind of brings me to this passion, and I am turning to a mentor and an expert, in fact, a futurist in the senior living industry. Her name is Sharon Riccardi, and I want to introduce you to her now. Sharon is the president of Northbridge Advisory Services, based out of Burlington, Massachusetts, a nationwide advisory firm in the senior living industry. And thank you for being here. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Greg.
What we're going to do is we're really going to talk about some tangibles. And I want to do a little bit of a setting the table at first, pretty quickly. And then what we're going to do is I want to talk about if I am a caregiver and I am looking for that behavioral, non-clinical, positive, not childlike programming type of an environment, the best for my dad, because he was a smart man all of his life and he deserves the best. What should I be looking for? So we're going to talk a lot of specifics, but if you could just kind of tell us a little bit about your experience, what brings you to being who you are in this industry.
Great. Thanks for having me, first of all. I'm very passionate about this subject, so I'm always happy to talk about it. So I have been in the senior care field for about 35 years. First in home care for many years, working for a hospital system, and then in assisted living for almost 25 years now. So over those years, I've seen the need grow and grow and grow. And I also saw that in the very beginning, there was very little knowledge about how to care for people with Alzheimer's. And we're mostly going to speak about Alzheimer's, as you mentioned. Most people say ADRD, Alzheimer's disease and related diseases. Mm-hmm. So there are other diseases that rob people of their memories and create dementia. But because Alzheimer's is by far the most common, we're going to focus on that today. Mm-hmm. But certainly, people should educate themselves if that's not the diagnosis that they've received.
So there might be stroke-related dementia,
yes,
or Parkinsonian-related.
Absolutely, Pick's disease. There are many others, but again, Alzheimer's disease is the one most people are going to encounter. So during that time, I worked very closely with training people and educating them about the way to do proper care for Alzheimer's disease. It used to be that we were instructed to orient people to reality, to literally say, oh no, you can't be meeting your mother today. She's been dead for 10 years, and what a cruel thing to do. We now recognize, but so early on we started training people as to the proper way to encourage people that were suffering from this to still have what was left and to celebrate that. And certainly over the years that I've been in assisted living, that has been the focus. It's very, very much on celebrating what is still there and not mourning the losses, because until there's a cure, really that's the best that we can do, is make them comfortable and happy, create moments of joy for them every day.
What is an assisted living community?
Okay, so assisted living in a larger sense, assisted living certainly cares for people who need just a little bit of support. One of the things we always say in assisted living is there are people here 24 hours a day, but it's not that you need care 24 hours a day, but that maybe that 1 hour next week when you do need it, here's somebody here for you who can be there in a moment and help you out. Assisted living is nothing more than supported living. People live in their own apartments, they have their own friends, many have their own cars so they can come and go. And then as they progress, as they age, the support can kind of cradle them more and more and more as they need more help. And it's been extremely well accepted. Assisted living was a grassroots thing that people said, living at home is getting really difficult. We're here in New England especially, we've got those stairs, we've got 2 floors. Those duplexes and those colonials with the bedrooms upstairs. And they said, home isn't working for me, but I'm not ready for a nursing home. And assisted living was embraced as a lifestyle. And then as more and more people, as we see people living longer, more and more people are developing Alzheimer's disease, because the number one risk factor for Alzheimer's disease is simply age. You reach the age of 85, that's a wonderful thing, congratulations, but 42% of you are going to develop Alzheimer's. So just that statistic alone, if you think of people are living longer, there's more of us. I'm a baby boomer. We're coming like a tsunami to the shores of assisted living, and then of course the 42% figure means that every year there are more people diagnosed with Alzheimer's who need care. So assisted living developed a specialty within its walls. Typically, it's always, in fact, a separate unit, and it's secured, and that's one of the biggest difference.
Downstairs at Laurelwood, they have many apartments. They are all studio apartments, and that's traditional. We're going to talk about some design, and while we talk about design, it may sound like inside baseball to the audience, but it's specifically a topic that I want to go through, because as a caregiver, and when you are looking for assisted living, there are some hidden elements, some gems in the setting that actually can help. So we're going to get into that. The person who typically calls is an adult child, typically a female.
Absolutely.
We have a lot of spouses that will be reaching out on behalf of another spouse. And the family piece is important, but the most important piece is the programming. Give us a little bit into the real estate looks nice, and it's 5 minutes down the road from my house, but what are you going to do every day with my dad? How do you speak to that?
That's such a great point, because it can't be about what the building looks like. You can have a beautiful building and people working there that don't know what they're doing, and that's the most important thing. Because people come to us for 2 primary reasons. That's why they choose an assisted living level of dementia care. One is safety, and one is socialization. Most of the time it's both that they're interested in. Sometimes it's one or the other that they're particularly interested in. So we'll talk a little bit about safety in a minute, but let's talk about socialization, because you talked about programming. We have learned over the years, being in this business, that it is all about how you plan the day. We kind of call it the rhythm of the day, that you want to mimic the rhythm of the day that would have been their natural rhythm of the day at home before they came to us. Because we want it to feel natural, we want it to feel like they're in a home, but they're not in an institutional setting. And that's really the reason that it's become so popular as compared to in the days maybe 20, 25 years ago, when long-term care dementia programs were the only safe option that they had. Now we have safety layered with socialization. And things have changed even since I've been in the field. where now every single person is treated individually. So it's not you have Alzheimer's, it's you have early Alzheimer's, but you're still good at this. You have mid-stage Alzheimer's, but you're still very interested in this.
Right.
And programming is individualized, where not everybody is doing the same thing.
Yeah.
And that's an important thing to look at if you're choosing a program.
Right.
You naturally do it at home. You know mom doesn't want to take a long walk today. It's cold out there.
Right.
You know what she wants to do. She wants to play cards with you or whatever it may be. Whereas in the past, a lot, and still, some places just think one size fits all, and that couldn't be less true.
And a takeaway from this is you do have family members that will say, well, I like what you're saying, that makes sense, but you really understand my dad, my mom, she's finicky. She sleeps late, and when she's woken up, she's grumpy. There are all of the nuances that people are looking to have an assisted living community understand. And so those are the good questions to ask. How do you deal with somebody who is a little grumpy when you wake her up or something, whatever those particulars are. Let's talk a little bit about the setting. Because as I'm saying here, the families will really understand what makes mom or dad or my wife tick. But it is the setting that really can make it or break it. And if I can give you, I'm going to throw you some of these elements, some of these areas. Tell me some of the things that are important for families, for caregivers to be mindful of as they're going through a community. Let's talk about depth perception. That is a significant thing with somebody who has memory loss. Explain why depth perception is important as it relates to the design.
Sure. And in fact, everything we talk about that makes for exceptionally good design in a memory loss community is important for people who are taking care of someone at home to know too. So this is entirely relatable to trying to keep someone at home as long as possible. So depth perception, absolutely. Depth perception is a loss that we see all the time in people with dementia. And not everyone knows exactly what causes it, but we see it, so we know it's there, and we design around it. And so where you might see depth perception exhibit itself in your loved one is when you see somebody lowering themselves into a chair, for example. Chairs and couches are different heights, and you'll see sometimes that they're not able to judge, and again, that's executive function, being able to judge that this chair is lower than the one they were sitting in 5 minutes ago. And you'll see they'll get kind of partway down, then they'll sort of just fall into it. And that can be dangerous, when you're 88 years old. And you can also miss the edge of it. And it's one of the reasons that we choose, people that are in the field, choose furniture extremely carefully for depth perception issues. We always make sure there are two arms on them, because if you're lowering yourself and you misjudge and you've got your arms on something, you're probably going to be okay. Whereas if you're in a chair with no arms and you misjudged it, you could lose your balance and fall off.
One side or the other. Right.
Absolutely. Another thing that I see with depth perception that was really surprising, I think, the first time I saw it, is that if you have, for instance, a black mat in front of a door, and lots of people will use it to, wipe their feet before they come in. Yeah. Because of the inability to, clearly identify that the black is not showing that it's a hole, you'll see people avoid it. They'll walk around it. They don't want to step on it. They think they're going to fall if they step on it. And we have used it to our advantage, and you can at home too, that we never put a full shiny black mat in front of an area we want somebody to go to, but we might put it in front of someplace we don't want them to go to.
So an exit door with a black mat in front of it may be a good cue for them to stay away.
Absolutely, for certain people.
For certain
people at a certain place. And the other most common thing that we see is shiny floors. If you've ever been to a mall where they have polished marble floors and it's very shiny, they think it's water. They don't want to walk on it. There's something wrong there. That doesn't look safe to me. Right. And they don't want to walk on it. It wouldn't be safe anyway. Shiny marble floor is not a good thing in general. But a lot of times you'll see people, one of the early signs of someone with Alzheimer's is they don't want to go out as much. And that's because in the safety of their home, they've adapted. But when you take them to a mall or a restaurant or whatever, there's a lot of things that they are not telling you, but they are having trouble figuring out what that is.
Right.
I don't know about that. I don't know if I should sit there, step there, look there, touch that.
And they're still cognizant of feeling embarrassed.
Yes.
And they don't want to look that way in front of others.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about illumination, lighting. Why is that important?
Yes, that's a whole study that, as you look to the future, one of the things that people that are doing good design for seniors just in general have recognized is that seniors need more light than people who are a little younger, and people with dementia need even significantly more light, as much as 30% more light as somebody that does not have dementia but might be their same age. And at first it seems, counterintuitive. Why is that? It's not their eyes per se that it affects. But if you're, as we said earlier, if your executive function is diminished, you need every clue you can get to decide what something is. Like we talked about that mat. Maybe with better lighting, they could see, oh, that's not deep. I see there's ripples on that. There's a surface there. So they need every clue they can get to manage and maneuver this world that they're losing bit by bit. They're losing their memory of how something functions. So well-lit environments, they do much, much better at. And certainly people designing assisted livings, memory care, even hotels have learned that they need to up the lumen level. I was just at a restaurant the other night and it was so bright we had to ask them to turn it down. But that's why. That was a newly designed restaurant.
So sundowning, that time in the afternoon where the brain is going in different directions and there might be heightened agitation, how does illumination in a memory care program help or hurt that?
That's a little bit of a complicated subject, but very fascinating. So sundowning is a phenomenon that we've seen for years. We've known about that for years. And it isn't just that it's getting dark and, there's that feeling of, maybe confusion. A lot of it stems from a person's past. So, because remember, if someone has Alzheimer's, I always say it's like an onion. You have your memories from the time you were a baby, your little baby onion, and every year it adds layers and layers and layers of memories. And when you have Alzheimer's, you not only can't keep adding layers because the part of your brain that adds memories is malfunctioning, but memories start to go away. And I often, when I meet a new person that has Alzheimer's, I'll say to them, are you still working? Now I know full well they've been retired maybe for 20 years, but they might not know that. And many, many times, even the families are surprised. I'll say, oh, do you still work? I never say, what did you used to do? I say, do you still work?
Right.
And I can't tell you how many times they say, yes, I'm taking a break right now, but I'm an optometrist or I'm a teacher or whatever, because they have gone back in time. And so think of it, if you in your mind think you're still a homemaker and it's dark, shouldn't you be home making dinner for your husband? The same thing with men. It's getting dark. It's time to leave work. I should be going home. Something's wrong. Something doesn't feel right. I have somewhere to go. So that triggers feelings of this is not right. This is not my home. I should be home. So we see that happen. And a lot of times what we try to do is diminish the effect of it getting dark. So we might close the blinds and up the lights. So they're not necessarily noticing that it got dark outside. So that's where good illumination can come in.
If you are a family member, what a great question to ask. How do you take that lighting into consideration?
Right.
Mistaken reality. This is an interesting one.
Right. Certainly Pick disease, Lewy body disease, which are other dementias as well as Alzheimer's, can cause people to not recognize something as artificial. This flower, for example. So they might think it's a real flower. That wouldn't be a problem.
And clearly it's not.
It's not.
Right.
However, a bowl of fake fruit, a bowl of fake fruit, I have, in the early days when people weren't that aware of it, absolutely they'll pick it up and try to eat it.
Yeah.
Again, executive function, not seeing all the clues that you might see. That's too perfect and that looks awful shiny, and pick it up and eat it. They also can eat non-food items like soap. And one of the scariest altered reality things that we see is, so think about this yourself. If you're, we talked about going back in time so that you might think that you're still, say you're 85 years old, you might think you're still 45 years old. Yeah. Now you go over to that window at night. You know how at night a window becomes like a mirror when it's dark behind it, right? And you can see your reflection. And you see that old man. Who's that old man?
Oh, interesting.
That's not me. I'm not an old man.
I'm 45 years old.
I'm 45 years old.
At an old man.
Who's that old man? Literally, people will bang on, get out of here, because
they think someone is trying to come in.
They don't recognize that person.
Recognize him.
Absolutely.
Wow.
And it's heartbreaking for family members too, because not only do they not recognize their own reflection, they don't recognize often a family member who they haven't seen in a while. You'll see an adult daughter come in, and a father will think that's his wife, not his daughter, because he remembers, his wife looking that way. He doesn't remember very often. He does not remember that he has a 40-year-old daughter. Yeah. If you asked him, which we do you have any children? Yes. How old are they? I think 20. So that altered reality can affect them in many ways. Yeah.
And almost everything that you're talking about really does lend itself to remind the audience about not pulling people out of their reality. Their reality, I have a 20-year-old son, I'm 45, I still work at GE. That's an okay place for them to live in, and a good assisted living community or family member will allow that to happen. Let's talk about technology, because you have sat at the blueprints of architects designing countless assisted living communities, from the size of the buildings to the technology that's in there, and you have your eye, as a futurist, you have your eye on what's coming down the line. Talk a little bit about technology, especially because technology might not be the first thing that a family member has in their mind when they're looking for a place for their mom or dad.
Sure. Absolutely. Technology really has two roles right now. One, it has an ever-increasing role at home, helping seniors with early onset Alzheimer's, or the first stages of Alzheimer's, or what we call MCI, mild cognitive impairment. So those people at the early stages of any of those three scenarios can use technology to their advantage. And this is where I always recommend to families to help them out with this. I think you always have to recognize all of these are progressive. They're not going to work forever, but if they can delay, their need to be more dependent even by 6 months, I think it's a wonderful thing. So some of the technologies, there's a wonderful phone app it Help My Sleep, and it will ring a little alarm and tell you time for bed. It will tell you when it's time to take your medicines. It will wake you up in the morning. You set it and forget it. One of those things. So that's a phone app, and more, seniors they've got their iPhones.
They're on their phones.
They're on their iPhones. So this is technology. In fact, most futurists think that is the future of senior technology, right in your hand, right in your app. Yeah. It used to be that it was the wired home, that the lights and everything were wired, but now more and more everything is going through your phone, and it's just another app. Yeah. You've seen the Amazon Echoes. We have them in all of our communities now. Okay. The Amazon Echoes take away the need for what is sometimes counterintuitive for a senior, typing something in, figuring out, how it's so difficult, even with touch screens. So now, with TVs and so forth, turn on Channel 7, turn off my lights, that type of thing. What's the weather today? All of those things, I think.
Kind of speak to the... But I would have to say, I'm sure some seniors are used to the clap on, clap off, because those commercials, good gosh.
That will probably never go away.
Yeah, exactly. Anything else on technology as we wrap up?
Sure. There's a lot of technology. So those are home-based technology mainly. in the assisted living world, there's a lot of technology we're using now. One of them is just cameras. We want to know 24/7 what's happening in our communities. We want to see with our own eyes. Oh, Mrs. Smith is getting up at 2 a.m. What's the problem with that? And she's not going and seeking a caregiver. We should address that. We'll check on her every half hour instead of every hour.
Yeah.
So camera technology is really exceptionally good. There's also technology though that lets us know if their door opens, if they get out of bed in the middle of the night, if they're using their bathroom, not to be Big Brother, but to assess their needs so that we can make sure that we're respecting their privacy as much as possible, but being there for them when they need to be there. So every assisted living now is wireless, and it has to be because all the technologies are based on that wireless technology.
Yeah. Very interesting. There are countless ways to explore what to look for, what to stay away from, because the place is 5 minutes down the road doesn't mean that that's the best place for your family. So, Sharon, this has been very helpful. You are definitely a wealth of knowledge, and I like your approach to keeping it real, because all too often we get a little too impressed with ourselves in the industry, like we know everything. And it really is about personalizing it and keeping it specific. So thank you very much. Is there a way to get in touch with you?
Sure. The best way is email.
Great. Let's do it. Do it.
It's sriccardi, RICARDI, at northbridgecos.com. So it's companies.com.
Great. Excellent. I want to give a big thank you to Laurelwood at the Pine Hills. This is a great community. They let us use their space. They have independent, assisted, and memory care. Definitely worth a look. Right at exit 3 in Plymouth, Massachusetts. I also want to give a thanks to the 3 handsome men that are standing behind Sandwich Community Television. We got Payson, Taiki, no, you're over there, and Ryan. Thank you guys for doing this. We're interested in giving you as many takeaways as possible, things that can help you make good decisions. And that's what this program is all about. I'll see you next time. I'm Greg Anderson. Thank you. With you. I hope your Thursday, I hope you know what, I want to try that again.